With Puna's approaching lava flow comes new laws. The state of emergency declared by Mayor Billy Kanoy on September 4th set all sorts of new rules in motion. Now, punishments for committing crimes will be elevated, while government itself is now exempted from many of the usual bureaucratic checks and balances. We can thank Act 111 of the 2014 Hawaii State Legislature, signed into law by Governor Abercrombie not too long ago.
State laws on the whole were written about disaster relief and civil defense literally years ago.
And I truly believe that by signing this bill, Governor Abercrombie is moving us into the 21st century.
We hope the time doesn't come anytime soon, that's for sure. But at some point, believe me, something will be taking place by way of a natural phenomenon that we have to come to grips with in Hawaii. And because this is in place, and because we have a great team of people, both volunteer and professional, engaged, our capacity and ability to be able to meet whatever contingencies come with that disaster are going to be tremendously enhanced, not only by this bill, but by enabling the people who will have that responsibility carry out their duties in a way they couldn't have otherwise were it not for this bill.
Now, leaders are authorized to, quote, suspend any law which impedes or tends to impede or is detrimental to the expeditious and efficient execution of or in conflict with emergency functions, end quote. The list of statutes that are now suspended in order to establish emergency ingress and egress is a long one. Those dealing with historic preservation, for example, or laws governing eminent domain, contracts, public lands, conservation, or wildlife. That's how construction on Railroad Avenue and Government Beach Road has been able to progress so quickly, a process that would have taken years before the emergency declaration.
Our emergency declaration, thankfully, and I'd like to say aloha to Governor Abercrombie and the State Department, because his quick emergency declaration that follows opens up a lot of opportunities for us to move really quickly. Because when we build roads and we build infrastructure, it's a very prolonged, detailed, involved permitting process, multiple agencies, multiple levels of government. What the emergency declaration does is allows us to just go in and cut through and build. And today I sent one letter to Director Ayla, DLNR, and Director Ford Fuchigami of Department of Transportation, just per the emergency declaration that we signed, asking them their cooperation for push railroad through state lands and to expedite and fast track permitting. If it's going to take 2 weeks, we got to go 24 hours. Folks, we're going 24 hours. The scenarios are go, we're not going to leave our children and our families strapped, disconnected, and cut off.
Meanwhile, 23-year-old Ronald Altura Jr. of Kea'au has the distinction of being the first person to be charged under the enhanced sentencing laws. Police say Altura was involved in the alleged burglary of a home on 34th Avenue in the Orchid Land Estates subdivision on September 8th. He was charged Thursday afternoon with burglary of a dwelling during an emergency declaration, which makes the burglary, normally a Class B felony, a Class A felony instead, which is punishable by up to 20 years in prison with no possibility of probation. Another example, petty misdemeanor criminal property damage, usually punishable by up to 30 days in jail or a fine of up to $1,000, is elevated to a Class B felony, punishable by up to 10 years in prison and a fine of up to $25,000. An important note in light of the vandalism done to the heavy machinery being used to construct those emergency roads we talked about earlier. Other offenses, including theft, robbery, and any assault against an emergency worker, also face elevated penalties. We recently spoke to Civil Defense Head Daryl Oliveira about the new rules now in effect.
Our perspective is that under an emergency declaration, it allows for the prosecution of crimes and the potential penalties to be raised above the normal standard penalties. So if something was at a lower grade of a felony or a misdemeanor type of a crime conviction, that penalty would be raised higher based on the crime being committed under an emergency declaration.